Welcome, Wargamers, to the shrouded forests of the mortal realms, because today we are talking all about the Dreadwood sub-faction of Sylvaneth, in our continuing discussion on the Sylvaneth, which I'm still catching up from this summer. As I said in my last video, I have a new way of going about sub-factions, so please let me know if you like this new format. I'm going to start doing it for all the factions. If you do, of course. And so the way this is going to work is we're going to talk all about the Dreadwood themselves, pick an exemplary battle, something from the Sylvaneth battle tome that really kind of exemplifies what this sub-faction is like, their temperament, how they treat outsiders, and so on. This is one of the cooler factions of Sylvaneth, in my opinion, and I cannot wait to talk about them. And then, of course, ending every video with why is this so stinking cool. Now, one thing I'd like to add right up top: if you like this video and you're looking for any kinds of Games Workshop models or hobby supplies, please consider using my affiliate link in the description down below. Not Just Gaming is an awesome store here in the US, not only with huge discounts on Games Workshop products, but also on some crazy awesome hobby supplies, things like Green Stuff World, Scale 75, Turbo Dork, AK Interactive. If you're looking to do any project coming up soon, and your local game store doesn't have it, please consider just tossing a coin my way. Using that link every single time, big or small, goes directly to supporting me, my wife, our cats, all of it. Thank you so much to everyone who has already done so. But getting into the meat of today's topic, the Sylvaneth, if you are new to the faction, is Alariel's children. The tree folk of the realms, sort of like the Ent faction, if you will, for Age of Sigmar. They are a mix of actual dryads and things like that, but also there's some elven souls that have been woven into their fabric with things like spite revenants, which is going to matter today. The Dreadwood are a sub-faction of that, so in particular parts of the realms, when there's like really dark or thick forest, or illusionary shadow or death magic is very prevalent, and a Sylvaneth grove, plant seeds there, again, as we mentioned before, they take on the aspects of their environment, really a reflection of what's around them. So the Dreadwood is what you get when a Sylvaneth grows in a dark and unforgiving environment. And their exemplary battle, which we're going to jump into now, really spells this out. It's called Trespass Not. Stormcasts from the Sons of Gladius arrive at Alariel's court, seeking knowledge of ancient Garanite artifacts of terrible power known as the Tears of Grace. The Everqueen's response is to furiously banish the Azurites from her sight, yet Lord Celestant Timus Wren is unwilling to let matters lie. Having endured multiple reforgings, his mind has begun to fray, and now he fervently believes that only the God King may be entrusted with such tools. Without seeking approval from his Lord Commander, Wren assembles a brotherhood of similarly damaged Stormcast and leads them into the hostile land of Decrepitia. Wren and his warriors vanish. Months later, a wargrove led by none other than the Keeper of Dreadwood suddenly arrives at the living city, aiding its Sons of Gladius defenders in repelling a mordant migration. In the battle's aftermath, the Sylvaneth swiftly leave, but the Stormcast are shocked to discover enough weapons and armor to equip an entire chamber of their brethren piled outside of their Stormkeep. The damaged equipment is still marked by split sap in some places, but with no trace of the warriors who bore it. Now, I'm going to be upfront and say that this story doesn't tell us a lot about the way that the Dreadwood do battle, but it does give us a lot of insight into their temperaments. In fact, I believe this is the wargrove that featured in Neve Blacktalon's first novel that came out, First Mark. So what I'm going to do is kind of recap the story and fill in some details from the dedicated lore section about the Dreadwood later on in the book. To put it really bluntly, these are the least friendly Sylvaneth out there. One of the things I love about the Sylvaneth as an army, right, capital S Sylvaneth, is that they are truly an alien faction amongst the forces of order. Just like the Seraphon are, right? They don't speak necessarily the same way. They have wildly different values, priorities, everything. It's just a world apart. They see the universe as cyclical, and their natures and all the knowledge they've accrued disseminating to their young over massive amounts of time. They think that humans are like a blip of an eye. So they're such a world apart. And while a lot of Sylvaneth factions are represented as allies in a lot of instances, there are those sects within the Sylvaneth that basically just hate everybody. fiercely territorial, don't even give you the chance to say if you're friend or foe, because if you're on their land, you are a foe by definition. They're exceptionally volatile, reckless with their time and resources, as they're constantly fighting. Now, in this story, Trespass Not, we get a decree from Alariel, just to quickly recap, Stormcast tend to lose their minds a little bit the more they're reforged. You can see the playlist about them for that. But one guy gets really, really uppity and says, well, I don't care what you say, I'm going to go find this artifact, and walks into the Dreadwood Grove. Now, what's interesting here is that the Dreadwood then come and aid that same chamber, sans the crazy Stormcast who went out to the woods, and still aided them because they still honor Alariel's word, right? Even though they hate the yoke of being under the goddess and they're very spiteful and bitter and angry and hate everybody, when God says go, they go. And so they'll do whatever Alariel tells them to do, which in this case was, hey, aid the living city by clearing out this roving band of Mordants that's coming. And by dropping off the weapons and armor, something very unique dawned on me. To get those items and not alert Sigmar to what's happening, either the Dreadwood have basically taken the invaders, the Stormcast who were kind of a little bit, a few fries short of a Happy Meal, and put them in a prison and stripped them down, meaning like they are bound somewhere, because if they had died, they would have gone back to Azir. So they need to be like in a permanent prison somewhere. Almost like a political prisoner, because maybe Alariel saw what was happening, sent the Dreadwood to go get them. The Dreadwood are like, well, we can't kill you because that'll basically shatter any kind of fragile alliances that our factions are having and alert Sigmar to what's going on. But also there's no way I'm letting these fools walk around my kingdom, and so what we're going to do is just make them disappear. What's one chamber amongst so many? And the second option, as opposed to just keeping the Stormcast imprisoned somehow, is that Alariel has her own way of preventing Stormcast souls from going back to Azir, which would also be an incredibly compelling lore development. Right now, Chaos kind of has the market on that. They have war shrines being able to suck in souls. They have the crazy cloud stuff that Be'lakor ripped into the sky. It's very dangerous to be a Stormcast at the moment, but we've never seen anything like that specifically from Alariel. With how, self-centered or mercurial the elves can be, it doesn't sound like a crazy notion to think that she might investigate a little bit. What would happen if I needed to fight off the Stormcast? Again, both of those things are highly compelling. When Morathi took over Anvilgard and made it Har Kuron, she had an entire facility of Stormcast enslaved and bound, because she didn't want anyone getting back to Azir to warn Sigmar of what's happening. So what if this is the same thing? I mean, and it has to be one of those two options, right? Unless they took all the clothes and armor off the Stormcast and they're just meandering Gur but didn't die. Or Ghiran, rather, sorry. But I like that story because it highlights the brutal efficiency of them, right? It takes a lot to pin down a chamber of Stormcast and not kill any of them, but take care of their weapons. So that's a dangerous foe. But they still follow orders. They showed up to help when they were told to. But they left a threat. And it's mysterious, and it's kind of messed up with all the possibilities, and that's exactly what they wanted. Yeah, we'll help you and follow your orders, but here's a little reminder of what happens when you don't respect our boundaries. Or our queen. So that's mostly it for the story aspect of Trespass Not. Let's move into some other lore facts about them. As I mentioned before, these are Sylvaneth grown from war groves that are in the most isolated, dark, and shadowy places. So Ulgu, Shyish can all have groves of these, as well as any place in the realms that has pockets of those magics. And what's cool about the Dreadwood is their story, just like their actions in Trespass Not, is wreathed in all kinds of mystery. They often conflict with Alariel's direct interests, but they never cross her directly. They hate being ordered to go do things, right? It's kind of like Starscream is to Megatron. I don't like being under your yoke, but when you give me an order, I'll go do it. Drycha Hammerfell is a prominent figure here, and many swear loyalty to her directly as a character, in addition, if not as opposed to, Alariel. Now, Drycha is a character that really just deserves her own entire video, so we will get there. But this is sort of her quote-unquote sub-faction. And not only do they have Drycha, but they also have more spite revenants than any other wargrove. And this is an interesting note. The Spite Revenants, their origins are a mystery, but these are the ones that are like a half tree, like dryad thing with like a little evil elf spirit coming out the side of it. Wargroves hate fighting alongside the Dreadwood because none of the Sylvaneth want to be near the Spite Revenants. Whatever weird, twisty thing that made them these little goblins of the forest, the other Sylvaneth have no idea. Is it infectious? Where did they come from? We have no concept. We know they're like us, but they're not us. And this has to do with their origins. Now, my next video idea is going to do one about the Shrouded season, but there is a point in time in the Sylvaneth's history, and this has been there since their first battle tome, which I think explored it a bit more to current now, where there's a time called the Shrouded season. And to put that in context, the War for Life, when the Chaos Gods first entered the realms, Nurgle had his eye dead set on Ghyran. There were other factions there, of course, but Nurgle was the predominant one. And the war just never went well for Alarielle, but there is one point where she vowed to do whatever it would take to win the War of Life, and then something happened. We don't actually know what that event was, but at the end of it, she had wiped the memories of all the Sylvaneth, oldest to youngest, and now there were a whole bunch of these new creatures coming out of the woodwork and following along the Wargroves, the Spite Revenants. And this is the sub-faction that really emphasizes them. Now, if Alarielle knows, or any of the Tree Lords know, no one's saying anything. It's kept like a bitter secret or a shameful thing. To me, that makes it exceptionally interesting. Now, let's move into why is this cool, along with possibly a few theories about the Dreadwood. One thing that stands out as a defining characteristic of this sub-faction is mysteries. I mean, even from the story we got, they don't have a clear line in the sand, they just make it very clear, you don't go into our woods kind of a deal. But within their origin story, why Spite Revenants follow them more than anyone, what it means to have allegiance to Draika as well as Alarielle. And the battle tome even points out that, Alarielle probably should just we'll say prune them, if you will. And turn them into a more subordinate faction, but she likes them like this. So there's almost this suspicion that she likes having them as being this twisted weapon. Like, if I need something that's just going to get in there and thrash and make everybody miserable, I like to have the Dreadwood in my back pocket. And so this actually bleeds into a few theories regarding the Shrouded time. So, for example, were they her executioners during the Shrouded season? Where, if other Wargroves got corrupted or whatever and needed to be trimmed or pruned, we send in the Dreadwood to go clean them up. Or does she form them this way in anticipation of needing fighters just like them, the most ruthless, isolationist, angry type of Sylvaneth there are? And it's for a purpose that we don't yet understand. I mean, in addition to that, Draika is a favorite, probably because it's just one of my top favorite models from Age of Sigmar in general. It's not so crazy over the top massive that it's intimidating, but it just has this presence. It just looks menacing. And like I said, she deserves a dedicated video, so we'll get into that later. And I mentioned in my last video about Ironbark how I like factions that are very picky about their allies. I also like sub-factions that hate everybody equally. There could be a Dreadwood forest right next to a civilization of order, and if a Chaos Warband comes and starts besieging the city, the Dreadwood are just going to be like, hey, stop bleeding on my leaves. Could not care less. Especially because the nature of Age of Sigmar is such a interesting type of fantasy where all these factions for order at least have to work together. You'll have a city of Sigmar, and within that city you'll have a Carriage and Overlord Skyport that's kind of, built aloft. Some scaffolding, you'll have a Daughters of Cain temple. We all have to find a way to live together in these small pockets of civilization so that eventually we can expand out and all go back to being on our own again. But right now, teamwork makes the dream work, and then you just have the Dreadwood being like, nah. How about this? Teamwork is you not coming into my forest. It's like, oh, okay, well, there's always that one person in every group project that's like that, it's whatever. But friends, I would love to hear your thoughts. If you modeled your army as the Dreadwood, tell me why you did so. Was it a lore reason, paint scheme, anything like that, gameplay? And if there's a sub-faction from any army with a 3.0 battle tome that you would like to hear about and you enjoy this format, please let me know in the description down below. Thank you again to everyone who uses my Not Just Gaming link. It really does mean the world to me, and I will catch you in my next Age of Sigmar video. Happy wargaming.